Now, as a tax and business consultant, we want to hear from you as one who's been very keen to observe the economics of 2023. Exactly where has been the source of inflation for us?
All right. In Uganda's case, inflation comes from around 3 different areas. The mere fact that we import a lot as opposed to exporting, we inadvertently have imported inflation. When the global prices, global commodity prices go up, then they will affect us. Like as you saw in the case of fuel prices that really skyrocketed during the year. Our exports are less compared to the imports, so we have a trade deficit. So that's going to affect our inflation. But then also, inflation can be affected by fiscal policy, by the tax regime, by government expenditure. When the government does not effectively spend, for example, in infrastructure, and factories are suffering with energy, are suffering with transportation, when supply chains are distracted, then the cost of production is going to go high. And when it goes high, it's passed on to the final consumer.
Okay. In that regard, then, which sectors have been the most hit in 2023?
I would think of 2 sectors that have had the food and non-alcoholic beverages have had pretty much low inflation, and it does not mean that the prices have not gone high. They have, but compared to other products, they have had low inflation. The other sector is the health sector. It also has had low inflation, which was at around 2.4%. Now, to dissect that for a second, we are a net producer of food in this country. So that means that we are importing very less. And if you notice, the items that we are importing, like rice, are the ones which would skyrocket. The rest of the items which we are consuming locally, produced from here, they suffer seasonal variations. So sometimes you'll find Irish has become expensive, sometimes
Because
it has gone down.
October, November, you did have the tomatoes, one tomato going for 2,000 shillings. And one wondered, is it really the season that we should be having? And even in previous seasons comparison, you get to see that the inflation was not that bad. So now, which sectors have actually received the thrash of the gods?
There are largely 3 divisions I can cite that have been hit hard. Chief of them being transportation. The other two divisions that were affected, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other related fuels, that one was also greatly affected.
All right. Let's talk about the oil sector. You do have, most recently, the president giving a directive that we should have monopoly over the import of the fuels. And so ENOCK will be taking that over possibly by January 2024. What's meant to be the impact of that on the economy, especially the business sector?
The assumption is that the government will be able to transcend that layer of middlemen, and we shall be able directly to bring in our fuel into the region, meaning we shall be able to tap, the government will have capacity to bring in bulk our own fuel into the region, and then we can have lower prices. And since ideally the government is not going to be profit-minded, then they can deliver a better price.
Okay. As we watch the space is in 72 hours pretty much. So
Sure.
We'll want to look at the winners and the losers of 2023 from 2 perspectives, the consumer's perspective and also the side of the business owner's perspective.
But largely speaking, the consumers will suffer because the producers will always put the burden. Now, fuel alone, which really rose high this year, is practically affecting everything. I've told you the transport sector was greatly affected. So at the end of the day, there is a spiraling effect. For the business people, largely the areas that they would be greatly affected is in manufacturing, because as you already know, the factors of production in Uganda are quite high. Energy costs are quite high. Our supply chains are challenged.
You are of the school of thought that as far as taxation has been concerned, 2023, the wananchi has not suffered as much as the middleman. Could you explain that to us?
The informal sector is largely untaxed when it comes to direct taxes. The informal sector and the digital economy. Right now, everything is going digital. You have a lot of friends who are selling bags on WhatsApp. Right now, everyone has a hustle online. They are not being taxed. So you realize that the burden the tax burden is being shielded.
And what are your projections? What should people focus on?
Studying the trends that are happening and getting knowledge from different international bodies that are investing a lot in research. Next year, we are projecting inflation to be around 3.1% on average. That is inflation based on consumer price index. There are factors that are going to affect that we should look out for. One of them is bad weather. These floods and droughts are most likely going to affect agriculture. They are going to make food prices go up, and also basically the agro processing will be affected. Number two, that could affect the protracted commodity prices, principally fuel. As I earlier said at some other platform, the OPEC Plus, which is the organization of countries that are manufacturing, that are extracting this and refining this oil, they intentionally made cuts, production cuts, so as to sustain their prices. And these production cuts are still running. So if they are not eased, then the fuel prices also may not be any better. They may still be affected, and the prices may soar. On the other side, what could help us reduce inflation is a stable domestic environment in terms of the economy. Stable domestic environment. That means two things. Mobilization of revenues, that is by URA. It can help reduce on inflation. The other area is in management of public finances. This has a lot to do with fiscal policy and the management of public finances. For starters, the priority spending of the government. What is the government spending money on? I will be candid. If we keep spending money on buying expensive vehicles, if we keep spending money on having a lot of people traveling as delegates, if we keep spending money unwisely, then it is going to affect the inflation. The inflation will go up.
All right, thank you so much, ENOCK, and you have really painted a gleam of hope for us in 2024 as we gear towards yet completing the current financial year 2023-2024 and then stepping and preparing for the next financial year. And the fiscal policy has been one that was transcended through the past 2 financial years. It's a recommendation that has come in from the private sector and the public sector. We need to cut down on that government expenditure. What are the priorities of the government come 2024? It's a question we'll answer another time. Thank you.